today, guys, we are starting off our Canadians Abroad episode taking a look at the Columbus Crew because we had a Canadian connection. Jason Russell-Rowe scored a goal assisted by Mo Farsi. It was very exciting. I really like to see the way that both of these two players are really taking a big step up this season. So, Peter, we will begin with you. What was your thoughts on the match and how much did the Canadians impress you?
Pleasant surprise to see Jason Russell-Rowe starting. I think the fact that they had the quick turnaround probably helped, but they are also playing with Nancy's patented 3 forwards this year, or the 2 10s behind the number 9. So that means that Russell-Rowe is going to get a decent amount of rotation this season. And to his credit, he took the chance. He looked very lively even outside of the goal. He had a couple of really good chances. He was combining well. His close control and pace on the ball is unbelievable. And really, I think the thing that's going to really help his case moving forward for more starts is when you look at his underlying numbers, the pressures and the pressure regains, chief among them, are elite this year for, even if you look at a small sample size among MLS strikers. So the fact that you're getting a number 9 who's getting into the box with regularity, he's pressing off the front, he's getting the recoveries high up the pitch, and he's able to get involved in the buildup as well, translating from his MLS Next Pro days. That's a massive benefit, because I know that was one of the big questions was how much do we take away from his breakout MLS Next Pro campaign when the league is so young? Well, I think now you're starting to see what we can take away, and it's a lot. And then for Farsi, he just continues to do his thing, right? He's always active in the final third. He's relentless on the dribble. He has impeccable vision, but I think really key now is defensively, he is making a lot of strides. Recoveries wise, he's getting a lot better. Maybe with his defensive positioning, it could use a little bit more improvement, but that's going to come with more time. This is his first year at this level. So, I mean, there's a lot to love from both of these guys so far, whether it's Farsi or Russell-Rowe, who's maybe still trying to establish himself in the first team.
I love the fact that Farsi just wants to get in on goal. He's very attacking. That first touch he took to then put the ball in for Russell-Rowe I thought was fantastic. Both of these players could potentially obviously represent Canada one day, but we're recording right now after the U.S. just secured Balogun, and Farsi is a dual national. There are reports out there that Algeria are keeping an eye on him. With this rapid rise that we've seen from his last season to basically the start of this year, Alex, what do you think he needs to do to get that potential call up to Canada? Who's he maybe battling with? And tell me the same about Russell-Rowe, because we know right now also with the Canadian men's national team striker depth chart, it's a little thin after basically David and Larin.
Yeah, I mean, Farsi just kind of has to keep doing his thing, because I think it's just one where unfortunately you can't control who you're up against. You look at that right side for Canada, if it's a back 3, I mean, you're going up against Tajon Buchanan, you got Alistair Johnston, Richie Larea all in that mix, but certainly he has to be the next one up after that when you look at other options across the board. I mean, what's nice with Farsi is that it's been a slow build. It's been someone who's, it started in 2020 when he was at the Island Games with Calgary and he popped off, and, and then he had another great season with Calgary. He went to the Columbus MLS Next Pro team, dominated there. Now he's come up to the MLS level. He's been a seamless fit under Wilfried Nancy. And I just think, someone like John Herdman's going to see that progression. He's going to see he's still relatively young, just 22, 23. I think it's something where he keeps pushing. He definitely deserves a look, especially you add in the dual national factor. And Canada could always use some more offensive wingbacks if they're looking to play a 3-5-2 long term. You could play Tajon Buchanan higher up the pitch. You can always play Johnston lower on the pitch and free up a spot for Farsi. As for Russell-Rowe, his path is, if anything, interestingly enough, more clear to the national team. So I think right now we've seen the number 9 is open depth-wise. I think it's pretty clear. It's Jonathan David, it's Kyle Larin. They're scoring in top 5 leagues. David yet to hit his prime, Larin in his prime. But after that, it's kind of been open. Ike Ugbo, on paper, you'd back him to take that 3rd spot, but he struggled for minutes. He's obviously going to need a new club. How does he adjust at that new club, etc.? Lucas Cavallini, Ligue MX, he's been scoring some goals, but, if a guy like Jason Russell-Rowe is begging for MLS, an MLS team, you could put him in that conversation, arguably above Cavallini, because he has that potential, that upside. After that, you look at guys like, Jebison or far away. There's just, you look at all these options, it's kind of wide open after David and Larin. So Russell-Rowe has a clear path. If he can keep scoring goals, I think his national team call-up's much easier. Whereas with Farsi, the only annoying thing in his way is that you're either moving some players elsewhere or, you're maybe moving Farsi to a different position.
Moving along now, a couple of our Canadian women won some silverware over the weekend. Jessie, Fleming, and Kadeisha Buchanan helped Chelsea pick up a 1-0 win over Manchester United in the Women's FA Cup. It was an incredible match. Alex, tell me a little bit about it and how our two Canadians did.
Yeah, I think it was a good game for the two Canadians. I think Jessie Fleming in particular continued to progress and to find, her feet a bit more, in a sense, just that, over the last few months for Chelsea, it's been up and down. She's been playing deeper in midfield at times, and she's had some really bright performances, but she's also been in and out of the lineup. So for her to get a start higher up the pitch in an FA Cup final, huge. She's able to get on the ball a lot more. Chelsea ends up winning 1-0 through a Sam Kerr goal. I think it was good for Fleming to continue that progression, playing higher up the field again. And as for Buchanan, it was huge news because she had dealt with an injury that kept her out for almost 6 weeks. So for her to come back and play in this FA Cup final, help Chelsea shut down Chop when they were up 1-0 near the end, was also positive to see for Chelsea, because obviously they missed her immensely during their Champions League semifinals. And it was huge to have her back for this FA Cup push, and they'll need her for the league push. So it's good really to see, because I think Buchanan's going to get a lot of minutes as they chase the league double now, and Fleming as well, given that she's been playing a lot more lately higher up the pitch where she thrives.
Now, Peter, let me know what you thought on the game as well, but also maybe a little love towards Jayde Riviere. I mean, she didn't feature in this match, but another Canadian was obviously on Manchester United. So maybe something down the line that she could do to hopefully find a way to break into that Manchester United squad that we know is going to be so difficult to do.
For sure, but I think the advantage she has is that their right back, whoever it happens to be, is always very involved in the team's buildup, especially going forward. So we know Riviere's strengths are usually in that attacking phase, right? And so I think that's really going to help her at least establish a spot going into next season when she gets the full preseason. And then, hopefully also has a really good Women's World Cup too, to maybe boost that stock even more. And then when it comes to Buchanan and Fleming, the fact that they are able to thrive in these big game settings is going to be a godsend for Bev Priestman, especially looking ahead to that World Cup, because we know Fleming is integral to the team. We know Buchanan is part of that spine as well. But for Fleming specifically, because Buchanan has been solid wherever she's gone, Fleming's chance creation numbers especially are much better this year compared to pretty much any other year she's had. Just when you look at the underlying numbers specifically, and for Canada, they've also been next level good. So the fact that that's going to translate even further, hopefully to the World Cup, that's just a massive positive as well for Canada.
Now, MLSPA just released the salary information, and just to add a little context right now, this rivalry, like we said, is going in one direction. CF Montreal, out of the Canadian MLS side, is rock bottom. TFC is number one, and the Whitecaps are, just in case everyone was wondering, are seventh from the bottom. But we're focusing on Montreal and TFC right now. But we're gonna throw it over to Alex there. When you hear these numbers and you see a team like TFC spending that type of money and not getting the results, when a team like CF Montreal clearly is not, but has found a way to get this incredible form. They've lost players, they've recouped very well, and they're right now gunning for a playoff spot very early on in the season. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of brings up questions, about what Toronto FC's end goal is with all this. And it also, you have to give, your flowers and your credit to Olivier Renard and Montreal for what they've done. I think, first of all, on that side, I think it's remarkable that I think they've extracted a lot of value. I think it shows the importance of homegrown players. A guy like Mathieu Chouanier making just over $250K is absurd for just how good he's been. And, you're extracting value from players around MLS who might be on lower ticket deals. I think that's huge, because I think, as we've learned in MLS, with the congestion of the league now, it's not your players 1 to 3. Those guys are going to win you games, but what's going to win you over the course of a league is players 4 to 20 in a roster, because it's a salary cap league. You need to extract value. You can't be overpaying for player number 6 or 7 and potentially ruin player 16 or 17 who could play a huge value in a long, congested schedule. I think Montreal's done a great job of that. Look, there's concerns to be had with the model in the sense that they don't have players 1, 2, 3 necessarily, right? Like when it comes to a big game, we saw it last year, where the stars maybe to step up, and you could wonder, okay, maybe they fill up another DP. But overall, I think that sort of model will lead to more success long term, just in terms of that. And then as for TFC, look, heading into this year, I think we said the top lineup That's a great lineup, right? But it's old. That's a huge concern. And the depth is a concern. I think we've seen it. Yes, you look at them losing to Montreal twice and be like, oh, they had all these injuries. When your roster is a bit older, there's a lot of travel in MLS. Injuries are going to add up, and you need depth to overcome that. I think the biggest example of inefficient spending, it isn't the Italians, it isn't anywhere across the roster. Just look at the number 9 position. Over $2 million are being put into Ayo Akinola, Adama Diomande, and CJ Sapong. 1 goal this year in all competitions between those 3. Just for an example, that's over 20 Simon Betchers. How many goals does he have for the Whitecaps? I'm just using it as an example of if TFC was maybe allocating some of those resources to more Alonso Coelhos from their second team and, spread that depth around, it would be a whole different story. So I think that's the biggest thing about TFC spending.
All right, everyone, it's time for some Canadian quick hits, and we are going to start off with Luca Koleosho, who featured for the first time in a long time for Espanyol as they lost to Barcelona over the weekend. They're pretty close to relegation right now, so it could be curious to keep an eye on Koleosho to see if he ends up featuring for Espanyol next year in the second division. Jonathan David was nominated for the Ligue 1 Player of the Season, along with Kylian Mbappe, Luis Openda, Leo Messi, and Sekou Fofana. Jonathan David so far this season has scored 21 goals, picked up 4 assists in 34 appearances, and has been linked to numerous clubs this summer as he's expected to leave Lille, potentially for a club like Arsenal, Manchester United, or even Tottenham.
Speaking of which, Daniel Jebuson's going to the Under-20 World Cup with England. It was largely expected, so you probably won't be expected to hear a resolution on his international future till after that tournament is finished. And Marcus Godinho ended up scoring his first goal for Krona Kielce over the weekend. Lovely to see himself as well as Dominik Zator thriving over there in Poland.
Evelyn Vian scores goals, and she scored a beauty this week as it was a left-footed strike from range for her 7th of the season. She now has 7 goals, 4 assists in 8 league games and 8 goals all competitions. Great to see. Chloe Lacasse has been red hot all season long for Benfica in the league and in the Champions League, but her league play has earned her the MVP award in the Portuguese league with 21 goals and 13 assists in 21 league games as Benfica won the title. Vanessa Gilles, who was in red-hot form recently in terms of goals, 3 goals in 3 games before this match day. They faced PSG in a highly contested Coupe de France final, one that Lyon won for Gilles' first trophy with the club. Huge to see for her as she's been immense. Lastly, in CPL action, lots of goals, lots of great performances from Canadians across the board, but Pacific led the way in that regard with a high-flying 4-1 win. Sean Young balled out with 2 assists. Manny Aparicio got a goal. Easton Ungaro got off the mark, lost to Like there with Pacific.
That is all the time we have for in this edition of Canadians Abroad. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to tune in for next week's update.